Now, the majority of our political and military class have all embraced drone warfare as the future. From their cheers for the strike that killed Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen, and the same congratulatory tone that we hear every time a Taliban commander is said to have been killed in Pakistan, to their willingness to appropriate money towards buying and building and developing many, many more of them. But what we rarely see are questions asked about the legality and the ethics or the morality of using unmanned aerial vehicles to kill from afar in other countries based on what could be faulty intelligence, all with the push of a button. Now, what we see even less are the often devastating results of civilian deaths. Well, now human rights groups are launching a broad-based campaign to legally challenge drone use in courts in Pakistan, Europe, and the U.S. And it's a joint effort by the British-based group Reprieve and their Pakistani partners, the Foundation for Fundamental Rights. And one of their first targets is the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, Cameron Munter, questioning his role in authorizing a drone strike where two young boys, ages 12 and 16, were killed. So let's hear more about this. Joining me to discuss it is Clive Stafford Smith, the founder of Reprieve. Clive, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And, you know, you have been, you're a human rights activist. This is what you do. And so you fought also for the rights of Guantanamo detainees, you know, not to have people be detained indefinitely without any court of law there. But unfortunately, that's still going on. Guantanamo is still open. We still have indefinite detention. Why have you now switched your focus to drones?
Well, I haven't given up on Guantanamo. We've still got a lot of work to do there, obviously, because we haven't won that battle completely. But I do think we've come a long way. But one thing that President Obama said is he's opposed to Guantanamo. And unfortunately, the consequence of that is that the new policy is to basically take no prisoners. So if you start firing these drone missiles at people, you make just as many mistakes as we made in Guantanamo. And believe you me, I've been there many times and we've made a lot. But now we're actually killing the people instead of holding them in a god-awful place like Guantanamo Bay.
Now, one of the things that you're starting with here, as I mentioned, is going after the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan over a drone strike where two young boys were killed, one 12, one 16 years old. And you actually, you knew one of these boys. So has this become a personal issue for you? You know, can you tell us the story about them?
Well, it is personal. I mean, it's a very important issue, I think, but it's also a very personal one for me now, because we had a meeting on the 28th of October there in Islamabad, and we'd invited a whole bunch of people to come from the border region. This was the first time these guys had met Westerners. And so, you know, we were talking with them, and amongst those 80 people was this kid, Tariq Aziz. And Tariq was only 16 years old. I met him, I shook his hand. One of the people with me spent a lot of time with him. 3 days later, he was dead, and he had been hit by a drone strike. And frankly, there's only one way that really could have happened, and that's that some informant who was being paid by our government, and I speak here as an American, notwithstanding a slightly British accent, I apologize for that. But our government would have tagged his car and then fired a missile at it. And that was just so, so wrong. And it has made it very personal for me, yes.
And, you know, we just showed a picture there. Those were the wrong pictures. Those weren't the two young boys that we were speaking about just now. But you have been working with somebody that's been on the ground trying to collect all of this evidence, because it's so hard to get the evidence of the drone strikes and what results. And unfortunately, those photos that we just showed, which, you know, let's bring them up again, they're gruesome. They're horrible to look at. But do you think that that kind of stuff needs to be out there for Americans to realize what's really happening, what the results of, you know, somebody firing or pushing a button from thousands of miles away is?
I think we do need to understand that. There's that child on the left there was killed on August the 23rd, 2010, which is when the CIA says that they weren't killing any innocent people, that they were only killing militants. Well, if that kid's a militant, then so is my 3-year-old son, Wilfred. And what we've managed to gather up from that part of Pakistan is we've got the missile parts that were fired to kill that child. And I think that very much brings it home to you that not only is what the CIA is saying total nonsense when they say they only kill militants, but also that you can see the missile that killed them.
But tell us more about why it is that we see so few of these pictures, so few of these images, why there aren't so many more people out there trying to document what drone warfare really means.
Well, I mean, I want to go to Waziristan to do it myself. But my wife tells me that my little boy has the right to a father and she doesn't want me to get killed immediately. It's very, very hard to go there. You as a journalist couldn't go there. I do have a slightly devious plan to get up there myself in February or March, but perhaps I'm not going to go into that in public. I don't want to forewarn the CIA where to send the next missile. But I think it's really important to us as Americans that we get to see the reality of what's happening. Because only if you can see what we're doing can you really make sensible judgments about whether it's right or not.
So tell us how exactly it is that you're planning on, bringing legal challenges. I know that you're not only going after the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, but you want to bring other challenges in Europe, in the United States, when, for starters, the CIA doesn't even acknowledge their drone program publicly. It's completely secretive. As you mentioned, it's very hard to see the evidence of the damage that's done. Do you think that you have a chance of winning any of these legal battles, or is it just about bringing attention to the subject?
Oh, no, we'll win. We'll win the entire battle in the end, because frankly, what's going on is just plain wrong. But let me tell you about a few of them. I mean, beginning with Cameron Munter, he's not actually the bad guy. The Department of State here are not the bad guys. The people who are committing these terrible acts are really the CIA. But Munter has been put in this ridiculous position where he, as our ambassador to Pakistan, has to basically say yay or nay, thumbs up or thumbs down on each of these strikes. And can you imagine if the Pakistani ambassador to Washington, D.C., Sherry Raymond, was required to say yay or nay to killing people in Texas every other day? I mean, she would be assassinated if she wasn't prosecuted for the death penalty in Texas itself. And so what we're doing in that particular instance is just idiotic. It's making the State Department's job absolutely impossible. So, that litigation will win because what Mr. Munter's doing is totally illegal under any interpretation of the law. But you can't take this all too seriously. I do plan a few other strategies that are more for the court of public opinion. And so, for example, here in Britain, there's a corporation that's making a lot of money off making parts of the Predator drone. And I'm getting a drone. You can buy a drone for $559 on the internet, and I'm going to get one. And I'm going to go and drone those people, because if they think they can fly these things overhead, round and round, over people night and day, and then kill them, terrorizing them in the meantime, then they need to experience just a little bit of what's going on themselves. I'm not going to fire missiles at them, I should tell you. I'm just going to take pictures of them the whole time. But this is a brave new world that we need to all worry about, because in Texas, there's a police department just outside Houston that's already using drones that they say they can weaponize and use tasers to zap you. And so we need to be thinking very carefully about this.
Well, I'm happy to hear that you will not be using missiles on your drone, but I think that brings up a really important point here, is that we're not the only ones out there with drone technology, the United States. Now, Iran has captured a U.S. drone, which, not surprisingly at all, when the president asked for it back, they said no. So do you think that this is something that's going to come back to haunt us? We're setting a horrible, dangerous precedent that other countries will follow?
Oh, you're absolutely right there. And what I'm pressing for here is really an international agreement where we have a big discussion about what's happening, and then we come up with rules about how this is done. Because like many things that are going on in the world out there, we as Americans are going to need protection against this very, very soon. We're not the only country that has weaponized drones, and there are at least 50 countries now that have drones that are not weaponized that we could very readily weaponize if we wanted to. As I say, I can buy one myself. You can buy one on the internet. So this is a problem that's come tremendously quickly towards us, and we haven't been watching as it came. And we need to have a very open discussion about where we want our society to go.
All right, Clive, well, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I couldn't agree with you more in that sense about the fact that there needs to be a discussion about this, which is why we bring it up on the show constantly. And, I want to see these legal challenges succeed. Thanks so much.
Well, thanks very much.